Hello everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of Crafting Basics. So this time we're going to be covering like your next kind of advanced tools. So after the first two, what would be the further down the line of your crafting journey, as it were? What kind of tools would you have? This is definitely not a exhaustive list. By no means an exhaustive list of tools, and there are loads of others that I have not even covered. So please let me know down below in the comments. Leave a comment and let me know what other tools you would put into this kind of more advanced section. And for this, I've kind of just stuck to like paper crafting. I haven't covered any paper piercing or parchment crafting or anything else. I've just covered like card making stuff. So yeah, let me know in the comments what other things you would probably put into this section, and also any comments you have about the tools I've used, or maybe you've got different brands that you prefer, or just your ideas on what we're talking about really. So let's get into it. Hi everyone, so welcome to Crafting Basics Part 3. So in this series, episode, whatever you want to call it, I am going to cover tools I would consider to be a bit more advanced. So obviously you've got your beginner tools, then you maybe add some extra ones in, and this is like for later down the line when you're seriously into crafting, you've seen a few things, you're like, oh, actually I quite like that. So this is a bit more advanced. Okay, so one thing I would say is a heat gun. If you want to get into heat embossing, then a heat gun is very useful. This is a Dovecraft one that I've had for years, and it's probably one of my favourite heat guns. There's a lot out there. There was one I got from Crelando, which I think was an Aldi one, and that's quite good, which I've got off on my desk over there. I've also had a one from, I'll put it up on the screen because I can't remember the name of him, and that's quite a good one as well actually, because that's got different settings on it. And what I like about this one is it's got two settings. So you've got like, oh, it's not plugged in. That was an anticlimax. So you've got like a low heat and then a higher heat and like a higher blow. Not all heat embossing guns have this. Not all heat guns have this. Some of them just have the one setting and that's it. So I quite like the fact it's got two settings, because you do kind of need that for heat embossing. If anybody wants me to do a little video on heat embossing, let me know and I can do that. I'm not going to cover it this time around, but if you want me to do it, then I can do that. This heat gun is also useful not just for heat embossing, but it can be used for other things. It can be used for drying stuff off. It can be used for all manner of things. If I'm honest, like if you're using alcohol inks, just want to sort of just quickly dry something off quickly. It's kind of a bit like a hairdryer, but it doesn't have as much blow. It's got kind of, less blow, but kind of more heat. So that's why you would need this. You couldn't use a hairdryer. That wouldn't work. So heat gun, really useful. Would definitely recommend, this is like step 3, like a bit further down the line, definitely would recommend a heat gun. Very useful indeed. Another thing that I would recommend getting is something like this, a punch board. Now, there are a few out there. There are quite a lot of different ones out there. This is one that I've had for quite a while, and it's probably one of my favourite ones. I have had 1 or 2 other ones, which I haven't found as useful, but this one by We Are Memory Keepers, I love it. I also love the fact that this scoring tool that is just sort of stuck in here in the end is exactly the same as the one that I have on my scoreboard, because obviously this is where We Are Memory Keepers too, but it's the exact same one. So I find that very useful, because sometimes if I've put that down somewhere and I need to quickly grab, or if I've got this out and I can't bother to get that out, I'll just quickly whip this one out of here. So I like that. I mean, obviously you could probably use any score tool, but I like the fact it's exactly the same. And then this punch board itself, you can make envelopes with it, you can make bows with it, and you can make boxes with it. And that was something I liked. It wasn't just an envelope, because sometimes you can get ones that just make envelopes, or they just make boxes, or they just make bows or whatever. So this did a whole gamut of things. So basically you open up this bit here, and then on this side here, it's very small. You won't be able to see this. I struggle. But it's got a whole little, thing about how to do it, how you make your envelope. And I like the fact it's done that actually on the board itself, because you know what it's like. You get your trimmer, you get your punch board, your whatever, and then it comes with an instruction booklet. But then when you actually come to use it, you're like, oh, what have I done with it? Where have I put my instruction booklet? So with this, you don't really necessarily have to, find it. I mean, they've got a whole load in this one. They have actually got a whole load of different boxes you can make, and in the instruction booklet it'll take you through all the different ways of doing it. So you do need to keep hold of your instruction booklet, but for like day to day, just need to whack out an envelope, just need to make a simple box, just need to make a bow. It gives you all the information just on the inside here. So I love that. I find this one very easy to use as well. When I first got it, I was a bit like, oh gosh, what am I doing? But actually I managed to work it out really easily. So this was great. The guide up the left hand side, so for each one, so for each envelope, so if, say for example you want to make a 6x6 envelope, so it reckons you need a piece of paper that is 9 3/4 by 9 3/4, and then the next thing it says 4 7/8. So what you would do is, if I grab a piece of 9 3/4, I can show you how to make an envelope, just so you can see. Okay, so I've got a bit of paper here. It's 9 3/4 by 9 3/4. So we're just going to flip this little arm out here like that. Then we're going to bring this in, and it said that it needed to be 4 7/8. So we line up the edge of our paper with 4 7/8 mark there, and then we punch and we score. So we come out of this one here. There's another little line. There's another little notch here, but you want to come out of the first, like the main one. And then once you've done that, you turn it and then just line this up with the little marks. If I turn this up here, can you see you've got like a little hole there and a little hole there, and then there's a smaller hole there. So it's only these two that you're going to use for envelopes. So I'm going to line this line up with the middle of that little notchy thing. I'm going to punch, and then I'm going to score like that. I'm going to turn it. I'm going to do it again. Line it up in the middle on that left side. Punch and score. And I'm going to turn it, line it up there, punch and score. So there you go. So now you've got the makings of an envelope. We just take this out of the way, and then all I need to do then is just fold all my corners, all my sides over like this. I'm going to do the two opposite sides first. I've got a bit of rough there, but that's just because my punch is quite old and needs sharpening. That goes up like there, and there you go. There you have an envelope. So you just need to stick down here, stick that in there, and then I just put a bit of double-sided tape on the top section, and voila, you have an envelope, a 6x6 envelope. Nice and easy. So that's why I think these are really good, because you can spend a fortune on envelopes on Amazon, but you don't need to if you've got a punch board. And it's also great because if you want to do some weird sizes of envelopes, then it's got you covered. And also, I have found an app on my phone, and I don't know if you can still get it. I think you can, but on this particular app, you can literally make any type of envelope. So it's called Envelope Punch Board Calculator, as you can see that. And so you just put in the length of your envelope, the width of your envelope, and the height, if you want to do like a box envelope or whatever, but you can put that in, and then space. So for example, this one actually measures, this whole envelope measures about 6 1/4, which is great. So that's great for a 6x6 card, because that's what this is going by, the actual card size, not the envelope size. And so the same with this. So this is saying how big you actually want the envelope to be. So if you want there to be a little bit like an 1/8 of an inch space around the outside, you can use this, and then the result of whatever you put in here will come up here, and it will tell you what size paper you need and where your score line needs to be. So where it says there 3 3/8, I don't know if you can see that, it says 3 3/8 there for score line, that relates to this, so 3 3/8 on here. So this is a really handy app, and I use it often for that. So yeah, so I would say punch board, definitely. This one particular I love. I've made bows on it, I've made boxes with it, I've made envelopes with it, mainly envelopes. The boxes are slightly more interesting. So you've got this small, medium, large, extra large, but the instruction booklet takes you through the whole thing. Plus there are plenty of videos on YouTube which will show you how to use this in more detail. So that is another one that I would say is a definite must if you're advancing in your craft journey. Okay, so the next up I would say is a die cutting machine of some description. Now, I need to find a screw to stick that back on with, because I haven't actually got a screw for that. This is the classic. This is the one that I first used, the Cuttlebug. Love the Cuttlebug, love the design, love how neat it is. You've got like a little suction thing on the bottom. You've got obviously a handle you can take off. your little platform thing opens up like that, so it's not, makes it nice and compact. And then you've got these plates here, 2 B plates and an A plate, and there's also an instruction booklet, but you get to know what you need, what sandwich you need to do your dies, you know, to cut and to emboss and whatever. As you can see, these are a little bit warped. These belong to somebody else. Got passed down to me. It's a little bit warped. It's not too bad. Yes, the plates do warp. If you just keep turning them every time you use them, that helps. You can, there are videos online on YouTube to show you how you can kind of flatten your plates out a bit. So have a look for those. And it's got a big chunky one at the bottom, which doesn't tend to warp because it's so thick. But the Cuttlebug's great. But there are 1,000,001 different die cutting machines out there. These are like manual ones. So you guys who watch me regularly will know I use a Rosa Studio die cutting machine, which is this one, which you will have all seen. Which is, let's do the side version, which is also really good. I love it. I've not had any problems with it. I've had it for probably over a year now, maybe more than that. And I use it an awful lot, as you know. And yeah, I'm still getting on fine. The plates have been fine. Haven't had any cracks. Haven't had any issues. So I'm very pleased with that. I like this one because obviously it folds up nice and small, whereas my Rosa doesn't. It's got a very wide foot on, like footprint on it. But there's loads you can get. You can get little spellbinder ones that literally cut a tiny. So these plates here are like almost A5. And the spellbinder prism, I think, is like, it's about 2.5 inches, I think, across. And then like lengthwise, probably about this kind of length. Or maybe it's actually shorter. I think it's probably like that. They're only small. So that's quite a nice one if you just want to, craft on the go. It's a little machine. It's tiny. It's nice and light, relatively. These can be quite heavy. So yeah, there's a whole heap of die cut machines out there. I'm not even going to go through them all. There's loads. If you have problems with like your fingers or your hands or your arms, and you find, trying to manually cranking a handle is a bit of a pain, you can get a Gemini. So off camera here, and I can't really show you with my camera because it's got so much junk all over the top of it, you can get a Gemini by Crafter's Companion. And Geminis, they come in the A4 machines, and they also come in an A5 version, a small version as well. They are fabulous. They are game changing. And if you have any kind of mobility issues, definitely get yourself a Gemini. They are expensive, but if you wait until there's like a sale or something, or put it on your Christmas list, or save up Christmas money, birthday money, whatever, get yourself a Gemini, because trust me, it works. It pays off. And they're so nice. They cut so well, and I've not had any problems. The only issue I would say with my Gemini is the plates. So the plates do warp, and there are quite a lot of them that you have to kind of sandwich all together in order to die cut or emboss or whatever, different sandwiches of dies of plates. So that's the only thing I would say. I've managed to solve that problem. I'm not going to tell you how. If you watch my live stream from Tuesday, the 26th of August, you will see my solution of plates. It's not something I would recommend, because obviously that would invalidate your warranty on your Gemini, but it does help solve the kind of whole multi-plate problem that a lot of people have with Geminis. But yeah, Gemini, machine is great. So obviously, if you've got your die cutting machine, you also need some dies. Now, to start out with, I would say you don't need to go crazy. When I first started buying myself dies, because I decided I really couldn't do without them, I just went for basic shape dies. Okay, so obviously my folder now of like nesting shapes has grown, because it's been many years now, but this is just to show you. So I decided early on I wasn't going to buy a squares die. I have since done, but back in the day, I just bought myself a set of nesting circle dies, which aren't in this folder, they're in a different folder. I then moved on to some nesting ovals. I think these were part of the early day as well, because I quite like to frilly edge. And then I branched out then. From then on, I just kind of branched out. These were quite early on, because I quite like the circles, but I quite like the fact you can have little borders. Hexagons as well I moved on to later down the line. I think this was one of my work ones. I had stars. Hearts are always useful if you're into hearts. And then in more recent years, I've gone to octagons. But when I say more recent years, I've been crafting quite a while. So this was quite a late purchase, really. I kind of did without as best I could for as long as I could. I did get quite a few dies as part of my work, so then I eventually did give in and got some square dies because they were kind of useful. Some things I inherited, like these ones I inherited. These were work ones. This was one of the first ones I got. This was an AliExpress one that I got. I got some rectangles because I was finding I needed like banner sizes and like for sentiments and stuff. And these have got like a stitched edge on them. So there's all kinds of different dies you can get. And then I got this a couple of years ago, this massive set. It might have even been last year at the motorcycle museum craft fair that was on. I got this set, which is massive, and I also got this massive set of hexagonal dies, and they've got stitch edge on both sides, and they were slightly reduced, I think, to what they normally are, but I was like, yeah, that's going to be handy, and I have used these a lot. So I would say if you're starting out and you just bought yourself a die cutting machine, just start with some simple shapes that you know you're going to need, like circles particularly, maybe ovals, hexagons if you're into hexagons, stars are useful for Christmas, and then also you will also need to get yourself some sentiments. Okay, so with regards to like sentiments, if you want to get alphabet dies, you can, but I would say leave that for later on down the line. I would go for number dies. Number dies are very useful. I would just find yourself a good mid-range kind of size to go for. Don't go for anything too big, don't go for anything too small, just go for kind of a mid-range. So these measure about 1.5 inches high, roughly, by about 1 inch wide. Yeah, just something so that you can kind of get by to start with. These were inherited, and again, just a different kind of font, but I quite like them. This was actually I actually bought these for window displays, so I want something bigger. And then you can get stamp and die combos. They can be quite useful, especially when they come with like dies that, you know, go with the different sentiments and whatever. But you want to get yourself, I would say, a really good happy birthday die, maybe one or two that, you know, just to start with, get yourself one good happy birthday die that's a decent font, decent, you know, you like what it looks like. And also then maybe a happy Christmas and a couple of other different sentiments. Like, it depends on what kind of cards you make. So maybe a get well soon, maybe a thank you, maybe a best wishes with love, whatever sentiments you think you use a lot. Get yourself a good basic, you know, die that's just a happy birthday, whatever. This was one of my first ones that I got, and I shouldn't have got that because it's quite difficult to use. I would have been better off going with something like this, just like something that's not particularly male or female font that you could use on any card. One with an outline is useful, very useful. This is one I got. This has been very useful, but it is very fiddly. So I would say don't go too fiddly. Just try and stick quite basic to start with, and then you can always, you know, invest in stuff later. Stuff like this, where you get a whole set. So all of these, apart from that one, so that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one, they all came in one set. So something like that, if you can get something like that, then that is perfect. Really good, because then you've got more than one sentiment, and you've got them all, and they've got all similar kind of font. You've got outlines to them, etc. So that's really useful. These were cool. These are more of a recent, in the last maybe 2 or 3 years I bought these as tonic dies. I don't think you can still get them anymore. Yeah, and then, like, you know, your thank you. Sometimes magazines have free dies, so that was a thank you die that was from a magazine. It's a nightmare to cut out because it's way too frilly and thin. So that's the other thing to watch out. When you get a die, don't go too, and same with this one here, don't go too thin. These really frilly ones are a nightmare to get out. So that one particularly, it's just a nightmare. If you go for cheap dies, just be careful. Sometimes they don't always cut evenly, and you end up with areas that you can't. So like maybe on this one here, like if that little swirl there doesn't quite cut properly, you're going to really struggle to then get in with a pair of scissors. So yeah, just be careful of that. This set here, this was a tattered lace set. This was one of my first set that I got, and it's been useful, but it is very small. So I would say, again, go for a medium size of, you know, sentiment. Something like that is a good idea. Or this sort of thing is a good idea. Just, it's not too big, it's not too small. You can use it pretty much wherever you want to. And then you can start branching out into things like this. These are quite useful. You can kind of cut them up, you know, to make them say what you want to say. It's a bit tricky because they kind of blend into each other, but these are kind of useful a bit further down the line. little fancy number dies with little candles on is quite cool. And then you've got things like, this is one of the first ones I got as well, things like this where you've got stamps that then go with the dies and they cut out the stamps, so they're useful. This was one of the first ones I bought as well, a big thank you, and that's got that's obviously stamped and it's got a die that goes with it. And then things like this as well, with it can be quite useful. But yeah, I would say to start with, just get you some basic shapes and some basic sentiments. So then later down the line, you can then start branching out and getting, you know, all kinds of dies. I would just sort of keep an eye on what it is that you make the most of. So if you make the most, cards you make are mainly birthday cards, then head down the birthday route. If you make mainly, you know, female cards that are all flowery and lovely, then head down the birthday and the flowers route. So that's what I did. I ended up going more down, I actually haven't got many in this one. Let me look in the other folder in a minute, but I end up going more down like flowers, that kind of thing, first, because I knew I needed flower dies. You know, start thinking about what it is that you can cut out by hand and what it is that you kind of would, it's very difficult to cut out by hand, or you don't have a punch for, or whatever, and then, you know, accordingly. So this is just some of the sentiments I've got from In Love Art Shop. And as you can see, I do try and go for quite a lot of birthday ones. And this set here is fabulous. So I would definitely recommend, if you're starting out, In Love Art Shop, and I think they still do them, this set. I will, if I remember, I'll try and link it below. I have got a code as well, so you can get discount off. If you use Iced Images, all in one word, that'll get you 20% off your order over on In Love Art Shop. But this set here has been fabulous because it's got an outline. It's a good size. They're a good size of sentiment, and you've got all kinds of things. So you've got just for you, which is helpful, with love, thank you, best wishes, happy birthday, and special friend. And they're a decent font. They're not really male, they're not really female. They're a bit fun, so you could use them for a kid's card or a teenager card. I use them all the time. So that is a really good set. I would definitely recommend that set if you're starting out in sentiments. And it wasn't that expensive either, and they ship worldwide, so that's always good. I've got alphabets, I've got all sorts of things, happy birthdays. This is what I'm talking about, a bit bigger. These numbers are a bit bigger, and again, these are a decent weight, not a decent size of number to start with as well, because they're a little bit bigger than those other ones that I showed you, but they're not massive. So if you made a 4x6 card, for example, then these would still fit. If you made a 6 inches by 6 inches card, these would still fit. A 5x7, these would be fine. So again, and I like the fact you've got the shadow around the outside, and then you've also got a number, but there's a bit of interest on the number because you've got a little, like a design on them. So yeah, some of that is quite useful. These are more plain, good for kids cards. I don't use those as much. And then yeah, you've got all kinds of things, and then you can branch into all, you know, like niche things like artworky, you know, craft and scissors and whatever, or cupcakes or whatever it is. The other thing as well is background dies. They're quite useful, but I don't use them that much. So if you feel like you're, you know, try, I mean, see whether you want to try them or not. They can be useful. They're quite good for quick cards, quick flat cards. I don't really use them very often, but there's so many out there. Just be like, you know, selective of what you get to start with. Otherwise you end up with a whole load of background dies and you don't end up using them. So these are like, and the other thing as well is to check the size, because a lot of background dies come in a size that suits American card sizes, so like the American A2 size, which over here in the UK we don't really use. We mainly use, I mean, some people do, but the general sizes over here are like 6x6 and 5x7, and so these I then struggle to use. So yeah, just if you're, you know, if you've got A2 size cards, and these are perfect for you. But there's loads of different ones, and you know, they are handy. This is more like your basic shapes again. They can be really handy, I have to say. Then you get things like this, which are kind of border dies. And again, they can be quite useful for quick cards. And then this is more like your kind of, you know, specialist type thing, different hearts. House dies can be quite useful because they can be useful for new home. They can be useful for mail cards. They can be useful for Christmas cards. So definitely, I would say house dies are definitely something that I would go for. For me, music dies are also very useful because I know quite a lot of, especially males, that are not drinkers. They don't go out down the pub drinking. They're not into golf. They're not necessarily into football, but they are into music. So for me, music dies are useful. So it's really just navigating your way through the people you've got, and what works for you. Easter dies, normally I probably wouldn't have bought Easter dies, but these obviously were ones that were sent to me by In Love Arts. So I ended up with quite a lot of Happy Easter, and I have used them and they've been useful. But I don't really send Easter cards. So for that reason, if it was down to me just buying stuff, I wouldn't buy Easter dies because there's no point for me. I don't send Easter cards. Things like ice creams, beach stuff, again, it can be useful if that's your, that sort of thing you want to do. As you go further down your journey, you kind of branch out a bit more, and you kind of, can start getting all kinds of different things. Again, swans, I wouldn't normally have bought that, but actually it's a beautiful die. So, it's just experimenting. Flower dies. I would definitely recommend you, if you're starting out with dies, flowers. Get some good flowers. Pick a nice, don't just settle for something, oh, I'll get that, it's cheap or whatever. Find some really nice flower dies that you like and that are a good size. You don't want to just jump and just get any old thing, because I did that and then ended up regretting it later. Yeah, and the other thing I would say as well is butterfly dies. If you like butterflies, that's another thing. So when I first started out, I did shapes, I did sentiments, basic sentiments, and I did flowers and butterflies. They were my main things that I bought. I didn't buy many because I didn't have much money. And a lot of the ones you're going to see, well, in this folder will be ones that I've bought, because this is like my own like stash folder. It won't be ones that have been sent to me. So these are all like what I class as non-work ones that I've actually bought because I like them. I do like a butterfly with a shadow die on it because that helps. And these you'll see quite a lot in here that were early ones. Again, this is like your kind of alter-new type flower die. These are great, but I would say a bit later on in your crafting journey, because they can be a bit tricky to kind of put together and stuff. They look amazing when you do put them together, but yeah. I would say to start with, if you can go for things like this, that kind of layer up and you can make 3D flowers, or you can have them flat and have flat flowers. They're really great because you can get quite a lot of mileage out of those. Sometimes die cutting machines will come with dies. So I had a die cutting machine that was similar to the Coca Rosa one, but it was from Aldi. And for many years, I used to take it on demos with me and everything. And it came with this bronze like die set. And I used these dies quite a lot, I have to say. And then foliagey type dies as well are useful. Yeah, just see what it is that you kind of, like. This sort of thing are quite useful. You just want to build up a good like portfolio of just useful dies. Try not to buy, like this one I don't really use very much. I think I was given that though, to be honest with you. They're too small. So just decent size. Magazines give you good stuff sometimes. This was a magazine one, and I quite like the pairs. I've actually never used it, and I probably should do, but anyway, that's for another story. And it also comes with the die that goes with it, so that's great. These were stamping up ones, and they actually come with a stamp as well. Haven't really used them very much. So just try and be conservative and really think about what it is you need. This was one of the first sets I bought. This was a Do Craft set of butterfly stamps with the dies. They're quite useful because you can kind of heat emboss these and make them look nice. Just have a bit of a think. What kind of cards do you like making? What kind of cards do you normally make? And then buy accordingly, and try and be disciplined with yourself. Don't just go and buy and think, oh wow, that's amazing, I'm going to buy it, and then it just sits in your folder and you don't use it. So try and be practical and realistic about what you actually are going to use and what you're actually going to, it's not going to just sit and not be used. So that's all I'm going to say about dies for now. There's way more you could say. There's kind of box dies. There's all sorts of dies out there. I'm not going to go into all of that. I'm just going to touch just very briefly on it. I'm now going to move on to embossing folders. Okay, so embossing folders. Now, I bought quite a few when I was first starting out. I mean, they've moved on quite a lot since I started buying them. And actually, I don't use them very much. They are great. They're nice. Again, if you want a quick card, they're great for making quick cards. Some people love them. Some people use them all the time. I personally don't. You kind of, when you start crafting, you kind of find your little niche of what you like doing and what, which kind of crafts you want to do. And you sometimes you won't always do what everybody else does. You might do something slightly different. So that's fine. Do you know what I mean? Whatever it is that you like to do it. There's so many techniques with embossing folders that you can use. So they are useful. But yeah, maybe have a play. See if you can get some cheap ones on eBay or whatever, and then just have a bit of a play. If you don't get on with it, it's fine. You haven't spent that much money. You can resell them. If you do love it, then great. You know what I mean? Buy yourself some more. They come in all different shapes and sizes. So you've got like your little 4x6 ones. you kind of A2 size ones, 6x6 size ones, 5x7, all up to A4, all sorts, 8x8. There's all sorts. There's literally all sorts out there, and they're basically, they've got like a raised. Oh, this probably isn't. You can't really see it this very well on this one. You might be able to see it better on this one. So they've got like a raised bit. So this actually is the bumps are coming upwards. So these patterns are raised up. And then on this side, they're actually debossed. So they're going down. So I can actually feel inside those leaves. So you literally just put your piece of paper. Don't go too thin with your paper as well. I would say a thinnish card. You don't want to go too thin with your card or too thick. You want just about the right. So like 180 GSM is quite a good weight to use. 140 is okay. I wouldn't go below a 120, I don't think. And I wouldn't go above a 250, probably. It really depends. It really depends on what you're doing and the rest of it. But you don't want to go too thick. You want to go in that mid-range. So you put a bit of card in there. You shut this up. You make sure it's nice and flat. And then you run it through your die cutting machine. But you need to make sure for your particular die cutting machine, check what sandwich of plates you need. So some of them will say, the A plate and then the B plate. And then you put your thing in, then the C plate on the top, and you run it through, whatever. Just go by whatever your instructions are on your die cutting machine. I would say always, something I was told, and I'm pretty sure this still stands, always make sure when you put your embossing folder into the machine and you roll it through, you start with the folded side first. So you roll it through that way. Don't put it in this way round because you could bust up your embossing folder. Don't cut the hinges. You need the hinges because it aligns up. The only time I've cut the hinges on an embossing folder was I got one that was in a magazine for free. It was a beautiful embossing folder, but for some reason it hadn't been folded right and the patterns didn't align with each other. So I ended up having to cut it, align the patterns so they did work, and then sellotape it so it worked. That's the only time I've cut hinges. Otherwise you don't want to do that. Yeah, so that's that. And then you can also get these ones, which are 3D embossing folders. Now these are beautiful. This is an Alta New one, and I have to say I've got about 3 or 4 of these from Alta New, different floral ones, and they come out so nicely. Oh my goodness. They are thicker, so just watch out when you're putting your different sandwiches together of plates. You might find that it's too much. Like a normal sandwich for a normal embossing folder is too much for this. But these days, most die cutting machines will give you separate instructions of different plates. That's why there's usually so many plates in with the machine. They'll give you different ones depending on what die cut, what embossing folder you're using. But the 3D embossing folders, they are the bomb. And actually, I'm thinking of selling a whole load of my normal embossing folders because I just don't use them. But I have used these more often because they're just so beautiful. Now this is very old school, this is, and I don't even know if they sell these anymore. This is an old Sizzix one. It's like an embossing plate, and so this has just got like text all over it, and on the back it's got like a checkerboard kind of thing on it, and again it's embossed. And you would use this with a rubber mat. So you'd put your card on top of there, put the rubber mat on top of that, and then whatever sandwich of plates you need, and then run it through. And it was quite effective. It's quite cool. It's not very deep. The embossing is not very deep, but it's quite cool. You can do some nice inking techniques on this. You can do all kinds of things with it, to be honest with you. So I have kept some of these. But yeah, I don't really use them that often. I don't even know if you can still buy these. You might be able to. The other type of folder are these. So these are cut and emboss folders. These are Ducraft ones. So on the inside, you've got the emboss. You've got an embossed pattern. But on the top here, you've got a die that has been like glued on. And you've got these. So these little stars also have dies around the outside of them. You can't see them because they've got these foam bits, so they come out. And so this will actually cut and emboss. So when you take this out, when you put your card in, run it through, take it out again, this whole star will be gone. So you could use that separately. And all of these little stars where the foam are, they will all be cut out as well. So they're really cool. Here's another one. This is a butterfly one. So if you see where the white bit is, that's the bit that's going to get cut out. So you've got this butterfly, and yeah, these are cool. These are cool. But again, they're very much a niche kind of thing. It depends on what kind of thing you use. This one's quite a good one. This is a a balloon, hot air balloon. They're quite useful for quick cards. So again, like you'd have embossed clouds, you'd have a hot air balloon, and then bits of the buildings would be cut out. So they're quite useful. One thing to note as well, generally, not always, you have to double check, but generally, where you've got like a printed design on the front of the embossing folder or the name of the company on it, that is like the top. So that's the way round. That needs to be the top, and then you put your card in. It's not always the case, so just double check. Also, you might want to turn it round so you end up with it, embossed, debossed. I find things like this are quite good, just all over patterns. These are quite useful to have because, especially for mail cards, stuff like this, or just for any cards, you can make your own kind of background paper. But yeah, just double check. So if I want an embossed pattern with a raised pattern, then obviously this is the card would go in there, and that will go on, and this is the front of it. If I want to deboss it, then obviously I can turn it around and do it around. But just bear that in mind. Just make sure you know what you're doing before you put it in. And then you've got like these big, massive, great A4 folders. These are huge. I don't use these very often at all. And these open obviously sideways. So you can't really put them in the machine with the folded edge. You've got to put them in that way. And what I would do, this is why I don't use them very often, because even in an A4 machine, it really does struggle. So, because normally if I had something as big as this, I'd put it on a slight angle. But because these are A4, you really can't do that. So Dewcrafts, I think, did a few different A4 folders. But generally they tend not to be, A4 tend not to be that popular, and I understand why. They're probably quite good for scrapbooking and stuff, but yeah. Okay, so that really is kind of covers embossing folders. There's obviously more you could go into, but that's just like a very quick whistle-stop tour of embossing folders. The only other thing I would say, which is an extra thing which you can have, or you don't have to have, you can get these little brushes that are quite useful. And you can get them that are like a 3-in-1. So they might have like a pokey tool on the end, and then with a little cap on it or inside it, whatever, and then a little brush, and then some embossing. Or I mean, there's different ones you can get, but these can be quite useful for getting die cuts out of die, especially like really ornate die cuts. So they're quite useful. I'm probably going to stop here because it's been quite a long video so far, and that's what I would say for like step 3 of advanced tools. There would be your next obvious ones. Let me know in the comments below what other advanced tools you got, like in your kind of later on stage in your craft journey. Obviously, if you're into things like vellum and stuff like that, then obviously there's a whole load of other tools you would need for paper piercing and all that kind of thing. There's loads. There's literally loads. Trying to cover everything is really hard. So I think as far as tools is concerned, this is going to be the last episode. If you have any other ideas, then I will add those in and do another episode if there's other stuff that I've got and I can relate to. If not, next episode we're going to do will be on adhesives and glues. So don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. Share my videos if you can, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.